smoked salmon on a pellet grill. Amazing. I love salmon. I'm from the Northwest. We get a lot of great salmon up here. But you can cook salmon, you can smoke salmon anywhere you're at. You can find salmon in all kinds of places. And so here we're using the Pit Boss pellet grill. I'm gonna walk you through the steps, how to get some great results. A lot of variations here, some different tips and tricks, also some varieties of how to prepare it. So here you have it, smoked salmon. So first up, I want to talk about options for salmon. So Costco is a great source for meat. So if you have a Costco local, they do a great job trimming, really, really affordable prices. As far as what fish to use, really it's up to your wallet, whatever you can swing. I love sockeye salmon. I live in Washington, Pacific Northwest, so we have a little bit more options than maybe wherever you're at. Most places are gonna have a farmed Atlantic salmon like this one right here. We actually had some wild caught king salmon fillets, which are great, but at 20 bucks a pound, and it looked pretty much like the Atlantic. We decided to do mostly sockeye, but then also some Atlantic, just so you can see it works for anything. This also works for, steelhead. It would work for trout. Really most fishes. Not all fishes, not white fishes, but anyway, here we go. Let's dig into the brine. So before you throw it in the smoker, you need to brine or cure your salmon. Now, some folks will like a dry cure, where you do dry seasoning, leave it in the fridge. That's an option. We're gonna do a wet brine. Got this little collapsible container. You do want to make sure you use glass or plastic, not metal, something that's non-reactive as you basically marinate. And so it's going to be water, some salt. You want to make sure it's not, make sure it is kosher salt, not iodized salt. It's just going to give some funky flavor. And then just some brown sugar. You can get really fancy here. You can add a bunch more flavors here, but we're going to add some flavor in after the fact. But you make your brine. You throw it in, and you want to completely immerse all your salmon. So you want it completely covered, and at minimum a couple hours. Here, we're going to do it tonight, and then we'll start smoking the next day. So if you have really thick fillets, like a really thick fillet, it might need longer, but I wouldn't leave it in the fridge for more than 24 hours. I mean, more, really, I wouldn't. I personally wouldn't. But anyway, so we're going to brine it, make the brine. Here we go. All right, gonna start off with some water. Obviously, you need some water for this brine. There are so many recipes online. You can see different ratios, but here we're just doing brown sugar and that kosher salt. Again, lots of recipes online. You can definitely check them out. Here I have my youngest son is helping, wanting to help daddy out here. So he's mixing and stirring. Now, really, if you have the time, best practice would be to put this in a pot and actually heat it up. And that way all of the salt and the sugar will fully dissolve. By not heating it up, it's not going to really, it's not going to fully dissolve. And so just be aware of that. You'll get a little bit more uniform flavor, but then you have to cool down the brine, so it's a little bit more time. But check out those beautiful sockeye fillets. Those are gorgeous. So nothing like sockeye or fresh caught goodness. All right, so some options here. You can just do the full fillets. That's definitely an option. So I did that on a couple, just to have the full fillets. But then also I wanted to trim some pieces into, portion sizes. Not only is it helpful for portion sizes, it's also helpful when you're moving things around on the smoker, just to, account for those hot spots and get things where you want to squeeze it all in. But the best reason for having these small portions is that's so much more surface area for the smoke to get in. And so by trimming it here, I'm just adding that much more smoke flavor to each piece. So some options to consider as you put it in your container. Again, whatever container works. And this cute moment is brought by my almost 4-year-old, hamming it up for the camera. Yeah, we're filming, buddy. We see you. You're an awesome stirrer. And so he just kept mixing. And then we kept cutting. So that sockeye, beautiful color. Again, this is that Atlantic salmon. Did not have the skin on, but they actually turned out just fine. It wasn't an issue for us. All right, so mix it up. Make sure it got as much as dissolved as possible. It didn't. You can see all that salt that's still chunking in there, but it worked out all good. So got it covered. It's probably a little fuller than it needs. Maybe get something to weigh it down. But close it up and then throw it in the fridge. All right, so it's been about 12 hours. We're gonna take it out. What are we gonna do?
Make it.
We're gonna make it. So we're gonna take the salmon out. We're gonna rinse it, cold water, really important here. And then you wanna lay it out on a cooling rack. like this. Now this is a crucial step for the smoker. You usually want to do this for about 1 to 2 hours. This is going to form what's called the pellicle. Pellicle. Basically, it's going to make, after we get the salmon out, we're going to dry it. All the sugar and salt that's from the brine, from the cure, is going to pull that moisture out, and it's going to get kind of like a shimmery surface. It's going to look almost like a lacquer on the salmon, and that's going to absorb so much more smoke flavor. So this is crucial to get a really good tasting salmon. Now, when you do this, when you lay it out, usually you want to make it not a hot day. So because there's so much salt content in here, I'm not worrying about it spoiling for just sitting out for a couple hours. But if it's pretty hot outside and you don't have a breeze or anything like that, you could just put it back in the fridge for this step. But we're gonna do it outside because it's a nice cool day, and here we go. All right, so rinsing the fillets, rinsing the portions, this is really important. You don't want too much salt, too much sugar. Cold water is important here. Make sure it's as cold as you can get it. Get it all rinsed off, set it to the side. Make sure your helper who's there doesn't put soap on it. Yeah, don't worry, we caught it all just in time, but he was having fun. And then once they're all rinsed off, then you want to pat them dry. Really, really important you get them fully dry. All right, so obviously I have a lot of salmon here. If you're gonna do it, max it out, right? If you're gonna do, you're already gonna use the pellets and do the time, just get a ton. So I need some more, so I actually took the top grate from my pit boss. But at this point, you do want to pat it dry. We rinsed off all of the extra brine, but I want it nice.
I'm gonna eat some.
We're gonna eat some. It's gonna be so delicious.
Right now.
I know. All right, so oh baby, that sockeye color is insane. Isn't that a pretty color? You can really see the difference between the two. So just patting it dry here, making sure we have as little moisture left as possible, because all that sugar, all that salt from the brine is in there, and it's going to pull out the moisture. So you'll have plenty of moisture eventually, but you just want to get it good and dry, and then just let it set out, let that pellicle fully form. So right now, if I wanted to, I could add, some seasoning. However, that first hour, I just want it just to be as is. I just want that pellicle to soak in as much smoke as possible. So some would add, some dry mixture now, but I just want it to run as low as possible on the smoker. So we're gonna fire this up. We are gonna do some ice water underneath, just to try and cool it down as much as possible. If you are not doing this much salmon, then just do the top rack and just have an ice bath underneath, just to kind of keep that temp as low as possible. The reason why you want as low a temp as possible, obviously more smoke, but you also want it really low and slow, so all of the muscles in there, it just doesn't toughen up. It's not going to dry out. You don't get too much of that nasty white stuff that comes out. Anyway, let's fire it up. We're going to go as low as we can. All right, we're firing up the pellet grill right now. Just turned it on for the startup mode. It's open to let go of all those gross gases, the white smoke. You want to wait till it's nice and clear. Here, I'm just using some competition blend Pit Boss pellets. You could go with just, maple, alder, applewood, something that suits the salmon well. We're just going with the blend, and I think it's going to be just great. But as low as you can, this Pit Boss 180 is the lowest temp it gets. We'll have that ice bath in there to keep the temps low. Some other ways, heat deflector, some other things you can do to try and get those lower temps. But here we go. I'm gonna let this burn up and then throw the stuff in. All right, well, everything's coming up to heat right now. So we are gonna go ahead and baste the bottom side, the underside, the skin side, with some olive oil, just so it doesn't stick to the grill. Don't need a ton, just a little bit. We'll do the trick. The Atlantic salmon fillets I got here, unfortunately, I didn't double check. They are not, they're skinless. So the skin's already been removed. So that might pose a little bit of a tricky situation for us, but that's gonna be just fine. Just a little bit here, baste it on. So just a little bit here. Again, the only point of doing this is just to make sure it doesn't stick to the grates. So no need to do some super fancy olive oil or flavored oil. Just a little bit will do the trick. Add some ice. Slide that right under there. All right, so that ice is just gonna keep things nice and cool. We're gonna go ahead and start putting these babies down. going to give space in between. Don't want them all touching because I want every side of that salmon to absorb the smoke. All right, so getting it all in, squeeze it in. Again, like I mentioned earlier, having the smaller portions pre-cut allows for just more maneuverability to get everything to fit. And spoiler alert, the ones above the ice bath did the best. They didn't cook as hot or as fast. All right, so this is a lot of salmon. It's about 15, 16 pounds of salmon. So top rack is great if you can swing it, having that ice bath underneath. There is a heat deflector down below, so it's not as hot right there, but there's always going to be hot spots. So again, as low as possible, we're going to be at 180. Obviously the lid's been open, so it's a little bit lower, but we're going to leave these for about an hour, and then we'll come back, take a look, and next steps. All right, don't mind the noise. It's been an hour, and as you can see, all of this white goop that comes out, the albumin, this is because it's too hot. So even though I had the ice water, I just could not get this pellet stove, this pellet grill, low enough. So that's gonna happen. It just means it's gonna be a little bit cooked a little bit faster, a little bit dried out. It will wipe off. It's just, that's a lot of the moisture. It just was too fast. So we're gonna clean it up. These ones down low, they're gonna cook a lot faster. And so at this point, I am gonna add some seasoning to some of them and then leave some as is, and then we'll glaze when we're all done. So here, I'm just removing a little bit of that albumin. Again, it just means it cooked a little too hot, a little too fast. It's perfectly fine, just maybe a little bit drier. They all turned out delicious, by the way. Now I'm adding a lemon pepper seasoning. This is a good seafood blend. I feel like that's really helpful after you had the brine. A little bit sweeter, then some good flavor. So I did that on about half of them. And now I'm swapping out for some cold water. It's not ice water here, but again, those ones did pretty well because I kept that cold water under them. All right. So, unfortunately, these bottom ones, yeah, we're already at 140. They cooked pretty stinking fast. All right, got some more time on these ones. Close. All right, so some of these, they're actually pretty close to pulling because you don't want them to dry out. Up top, we still got quite some time, but some way faster than we anticipated. So at least these two over here, way too hot. So we're gonna go ahead and pull these, and we're gonna baste the ones that are close as well. My gosh, I just pulled these because they were already too hot. I'm gonna use these for smoked salmon, so that's why you make so much. These went way too fast, but the flavor is insane just from that simple brine and the smoke flavor. So all that extra albumin, I'm not really concerned about this one drying out too much because I'm gonna put this in a spread, in a dip. So that's why you wanna do a lot of them. So if you have some casualties because of hot spots. So I'm gonna pull these, gonna let these go a little bit longer, and then we'll baste some of them. But this with nothing on it, my gosh, the flavor is incredible. All right, so these low ones, we're gonna go ahead and baste them with some honey. You can do syrup. You can do, you can do all kinds of things. Whatever you wanna baste on. Usually you wanna bump the heat up a little bit more, just so that glaze fully forms. Again, you just saw the flavor is incredible. Well, you're just taking my word for it. The flavor is amazing without. So it's great to do a bunch of different ones and kind of figure out your favorite flavor profile. Just a little honey on these two. Have a little bit of that rub, and then some honey. We're gonna let that set up. And then we're gonna just leave these as is up top. We'll glaze the ones in the back a bit, but we're gonna leave it for about another 40 minutes. All right, taking a look where we're at. It's been a little over 2 hours. I'm looking for 130 to 140 for my final temp. Yeah, actually, these bottom two are probably good. I'm gonna pull these. These ones up top, obviously, they're doing okay. Yeah, they're like 105 to 115, so we're gonna keep taking a look at these. Probably another 30 to 40 minutes, then we'll baste some of these up top, but we'll pull these two and keep going on the rest. So here's those top rack fillets that were above the ice water. They just were able to cook lower and slower. They didn't have as much of the albumin, so much flavor. These got the full about 3-ish hours. All the other ones still delicious. My gosh, everything tasted so good. But when you're doing a bunch, it's kind of fun to play around with different flavors and variables, see what you like, see what your family likes, but delicious fun. Well, there you have it, some smoked salmon. My gosh, is this delicious. So, lots of variables. So good. Wow. So many variables here. So, to start with, excuse me, you gotta eat it, right? Otherwise you don't believe me. It's insane. The brine. So to start with, the brine, right? If you do not want your salmon sweet at all, then maybe less brown sugar. Look up online different recipes for brine. Adding, the flavor with the dry rub on here. Had a little bit of flavor to a little spice, kind of cut down on the sweet from the brown sugar in the brine. And then as far as your glaze, so lots of different glazes. You can totally make your own. Usually people like to do a sweet glaze on smoked salmon. Lots of options, but so many variables. If this video provided value for you and you want to see more videos like this with the smoker, sides, other things, you can check out the channel. Please consider subscribing. My main channel is Eight Woodworks, where we make wood, wooden things, wood tabletops, cutting boards, outdoor kitchens, all that kind of stuff. So you can check out the main channel as well. What are your recipes? When you make smoked salmon, are you a cold smoke, hot smoke, brine, wet, or a dry cure? What are your tips and tricks? Share with the community. Just some delicious goodies. So anyway, make some smoked salmon. Delicious. Stay tuned for using all this good stuff and a yum dip. See ya.